Welcome to the 4th annual First Watch Shamely Awards. I'm your MC for tonight, Kris Myers. I'll try to keep this show clipping along at a steady pace. Gotta keep James and Allan on the straight and narrow as they detail the best of whatever the hell they watched in 2024. You just never know what they're going to get into. Now, in order to attend this ceremony, there is a small matter of a cover charge. You need to call 3 friends and tell them to listen and subscribe to Cinema Shame. No, by all means, take your time. We'll wait. This episode never runs too long. Now, while we wait for that guy to take care of his business, I'll compose a 5-star review that you can just plug into the podcast platform of your choice. Ahem. Excuse me. 29 Helens agree that Cinema Shame is the best movie podcast ever. I especially love that announcer with the silky, seductive voice. 5 stars. Perfect. Now, overture, curtains, lights, on with the show. This is it. The 2024 Shamely Awards.
Gather round ye old talkie box to celebrate our year in movie watching. These are our favorite first-time watches from the year of 2024. We have dubbed these the Shamely Awards, but there is no shame in just enjoying cinema. Which reminds me, these categories are titled Favorite, because our opinions are not beholden to the status quo. If you're not enjoying the movies you're watching, what's the fucking point of watching them in the first place?
That said, I just want to interject. I just want to interject that while these are also my favorite, they are also the best. Because if it's my favorite,
it's the best.
Then it is the best. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's why we have a podcast. if we thought otherwise, we wouldn't be talking into microphones.
I was just worried that other people might not be aware of that, so I just want everyone to know if it's my favorite, it is the best.
Okay, it's good to be clear about that up front.
Yeah.
So there's no debate afterwards. Like, oh, why didn't you include? Because it's wrong.
Yeah.
And along the way, you'll hear from some former guests of the show. They'll share their favorite first-time watches from 2024 to break up the James and Allan monotony. I'm James, and that's Allan. If you just stumbled into this for some reason.
This is a good first episode to listen to, because every episode is a good first episode to listen to.
All right. Just like our movies are the only movies.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, and what I love about this format is that we get to talk about individual successes, like acting and screenwriting, and maybe we fall in love with a specific performance or a creative contribution, even though we don't think the movie's that great. But we still get to talk about something that we loved. As we go through these categories this year, we're going to christen them to make them more specifically Cinema Shame related. In the past, they've been named favorite actor, favorite supporting actor, favorite actress, favorite supporting actress, and now they will be personalized just for us, and heretofore forthwith will be named accordingly. We're going to do this organically as the episode happens, so you'll get to participate without actually participating.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
you'll be there when it happens.
The follow along. It's like a choose your own adventure, but you just have to agree with everything we say. I watched, according to Letterboxd, 170 movies for the first time in 2024. Unfortunately, for my specific statistics this year, and I blame my daughter every year for whatever trend comes up. Last year it was
Sylvester
Stallone's sweep of director and actor, because we watched 17 of his films. This year, she wanted to watch the Lord of the Rings series, the Hobbit series, and the X-Men franchises. So, who was the most frequently watched actor in a landslide in 2024?
Is it my fellow Kylie Minogue fanatic, Mr. Sir Ian McKellen?
Indeed it was. Landslide. But number 2 surprised me. Catherine O'Hara.
What? Why? What's wrong?
Oh, I'm trying to capture the perfect primal scream. I'm going to blow it up, mount it on the wall, and I invite all of you to do the same.
Why?
For the collective. We cannot sincerely celebrate all that was good about our dearly departed, not until we release the horror that they inflicted upon us.
Hey, I mean, I feel like you're slowly becoming an honorary Canadian.
That's the first thing I thought. Yeah.
Absorb all of our culture.
And all that meant, too, that Peter Jackson won the most frequent director with 6 films from last year, a stark contrast to the Sylvester Stallone year prior. And you don't log Letterboxd movies, so you're just like, whatever, man, that's great.
I'm warning everyone now because I was realizing as I was going over sort of all of the... Because I base it more just sort of like, to me, it's sort of like a memory thing. Like, what movies do I remember watching that I really enjoyed enough to actually, like, as I'm making out this list, that these are the first names that come to my mind. And I also remembered, like, I played a lot of Elden Ring this year. Like, I'm 300 hours in.
Did you nominate Elden Ring in all of the categories?
I did not. You will not see Millennia anywhere in this.
Oh.
And that's why I'm warning you now, you are going to see a lot of the same films sort of mentioned over and over again for that reason. I also, like, watched a lot of other movies, but I just sort of, like... They just sort of faded from memory and just didn't make the impact that these ones did. So consider this more like almost like a top 10 list than anything else that I just keep going back to over and over again, these same movies.
Just a peek behind the curtain, I have a list that I keep all year in a Word document. Every time I see a film that I was like, oh, gee, that qualifies for X category. I really like that. I think that's about all we got. I'm drinking. It's a long night, so...
and I don't have to work tomorrow, so I am ingesting a cannabis-infused beverage.
These are the podcasts that go nowhere but up.
Favorite supporting actress.
Let's start with our first category, favorite supporting actress. That I would like to propose, and this is also kind of a spoiler... I propose we call this the Terry Garr.
Yes, I feel that she was the queen of supporting actresses. Although I will say that probably one of the worst movies I watched this year starred Terry Garr.
Well, she had a few of those.
Yeah. It was a TV movie, so it doesn't fully count.
No. You're automatically forgiven all of your TV movie sins. My first nomination is for Vanessa Redgrave in The Devils from 1971. This movie is going to come up a lot tonight, and Redgrave gives one of those big manic, brilliantly deranged performances, emotionally charged and filled with all sorts of crazy eyes, and... You know, the crazy eyes do it in terms of performance value. It's honestly one of the most striking performances I've seen from her, and I've liked a lot of her work.
I just want to
Yes.
interrupt. I haven't seen The Devils, so if we want to do an episode on this film, it is in play.
Well, I would love to rewatch and do it all over again, but you may get your fill after tonight. Next up is one of those traditional Oscar Beatty performances from Octavia Spencer in Fruitvale Station. I watched it for the first time stuck in a motel room in Kansas City, and it just happened to be on TCM that night. And while Michael B. Jordan is terrific, I thought that Octavia Spencer was largely the emotional center of that film, playing his mother. I thought it was just a fantastic performance. This next one is my super fun Where Did That Come From performance from Miriam Hopkins in Hollywood Horror House from 1970. Hopkins' willingness to embrace the hagsploitation slasher premise was just something to behold. You know, you got the impression that she saw Sunset Boulevard and just thought she could do that and then some.
Yeah.
The movie is never really as good as she is. It's really all over the place. It has some fun bits, but
I've honestly never even heard of it.
It goes by a couple other useless names like Strange Invader, I think. It's I mean, the best thing is hagsploitation and slasher kind of crammed into one, and it doesn't do either of them especially well, but Hopkins really embraces this.
Well, I think hagsploitation is going to be sort of a theme of my night, based on a movie that is going to dominate the winner of many of these categories. So
it's not a broad category, so I'm interested to see where this goes. Next, we're going to go in the total opposite direction. A child actor by the name of Jane Laverne, who starred in a 1927 silent comedy starring Reginald Denny called That's My Daddy. She becomes a pawn in his elaborate lie to evade a speeding ticket. He is pretending that he's on his way to visit his sick child in the hospital, and goes there and just picks one out at the hospital, like, this is my kid. And she doesn't know who her daddy is because she's an orphan. So she goes along with it. I had never seen her before. She quit acting by 1930. This is her first film role, and she's 7 or 8 here, and it's one of the most fun and sincerely entertaining child performances I had ever seen. Like, every minute she's on screen, she's just like this big light. She plays well with Reginald Denny, who's kind of hit or miss with me, but I really like this comedy. And so from Miriam Hopkins in Hagsploitation to Jane Laverne, Child Star 1927, now we're at this year's winner, Terry Garr in After Hours.
I work in the Xerox shop downstairs.
Downstairs?
Yeah. We're right on top of it. I've got the keys. You want to go down and see it?
No. Thanks, I've had about enough excitement for one night.
It's a lousy job, but I can get free copies whenever I want to.
Gee whiz.
Hey, what is that? Gee whiz. I mean, are you humoring me? I don't have to take that kind of shit, you know? I mean, what is it with people today? You can't say anything without getting some kind of a smart answer. You just have to be so goddamn careful about everything you say. You think I don't notice? I know what's going on. I overhear the customers at the Xerox shop when they're making fun of me.
I didn't mean anything by that.
I mean, it was raining outside, and I invited you to come into my home. I didn't have to do that, now did I?
Now, first of all, you're not stupid.
Look, I have trouble figuring out the tax on checks. So what? I mean, 8% is a bitch. So I make a few mistakes. So sue me. Call your lawyers.
Okay, come on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it.
You haven't seen After Hours?
Yeah, fuck you. I hadn't until just this year. And I want to admit that this is not an in memoriam Shamely. But, I want to stress that Terry Garr's performance in After Hours is one of the most Terry Garr roles that could have ever been created.
100%.
The Did You Miss Me scene where he comes back to her apartment after promising he would come back is just perfection. It made me melt. She is adoring and thankful in 1 second, and then a switch flips, and then he's absolutely dead to her. She's petulant and annoyed. He can't write a correct phone number down. And if I hadn't known who Terry Garr was before watching After Hours, and I had just seen her in this scene, she would have automatically become one of my favorite actresses. The fact that she was already one of my favorite actresses, and I got to see her in this role that it's like, oh, I couldn't believe I haven't had this performance listed among my favorite Terry Garr performances. I do now, and there was no other option for me here.
No, I like I said, I did watch Witch's Brew for the first time this year, thanks to one of our guests, Paul Freitag-Frey, and it is absolutely terrible. So if you decide you cannot complete the entire Terry Garr filmography, that is the one you can just cut out and you'll be fine.
Noted.
So my nominees begins with a movie that I watched on an airplane, thanks to my co-host recommending it on Twitter. It seemed like something that would be very much up my alley, so I bought the DVD, ripped it, and then watched it on my laptop on a plane, and it was easily one of my favorite watches from last year. It's not the biggest role. She's basically playing the wife of John Barrymore, who's sort of engaged in this sort of flirtatious, like semi-adulterous relationship with this like other like handsome rich dude, and Barrymore tries to loop Claudette Gobert into his scheme to separate them, but Astor just has that Mary Astor presence. Sort of it's always fun watching her, knowing like sort of what a freak she was. Because like when you see her get flirtatious, she's like, oh, she was down. Like she actually who she was in real life. So that, I think that adds that, just it always makes her performances fun, and I just loved her in this. My second nomination is Susan Oliver for Looking for Love, which was the Connie Francis movie I didn't know I needed in my life, and a major reason why I liked it as much as I did was specifically because of Susan Oliver, who, like, I think I brought this up in our Shame Down episode, but there is a documentary about her called The Green Girl, and that specifically refers to the fact that she was the first. There were more than one, but she was the first Orion slave girl on Star Trek. And that's probably the role she remains most famous for. But she actually had a pretty extensive career. A lot like Terry Garr, she spent a lot more time as the co-star rather than the leading lady, which was a bit of a shame. Like, when you watch Looking for Love, you could easily see it. Like if she could sing like Connie Francis, then she could have just as easily been the star of it as Francis was. My third nominee, I'm nominating her for two different movies. Because she was basically the two things I liked in Marnie and Straitjacket, and that's Diane Baker. I basically, Diane Baker was one of those names that I'd always known, but in my head she's like the senator mom in the one scene in Silence of the Lambs, so it was fun seeing her like in two movies basically in a row. I think I actually literally watched them one after the other. So it was like seeing her like so close together, so young, and just like. And
now she's a fetish, ladies and gentlemen.
Now she's a fetish. Yeah. I think like we made it. I made it very, very clear in our Shame Down episode that one of the reasons why I just didn't like Marnie was I just could not understand why Sean Connery was so focused on Tippi Hedren when Diane Baker was literally right there pining for him. That made no logical sense for me. My fourth nominee is one that I admit is I would call it purely iconic. I'm not even sure she has any lines in the movie. Like, she's just a presence in the film, but she was my favorite thing about that film, and that's Monica Bellucci in Beetlejuice. Credit the special effects, but I think one of the funnest scenes of any movie I saw this year was like her character literally escaping out of these boxes her body parts have been put in and literally stitching herself together. Blue skied it at the time that, people, will criticize directors for casting their girlfriends in movies, but I will always support Tim Burton casting his girlfriends in movies because he has a record of like dating the hottest goth girls on the planet.
Listen, he knows how to pick them. It's just the truth.
Yeah, if he's going to keep doing that, keep putting them in his movies. I fully support him. But my winner is Margaret Qualley in The Substance.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.
I think Demi Moore is getting a lot of the attention, deservedly. But I think for that last act alone, with her in the sort of the suit, because that was a physical thing that she was actually in. I think that is truly like jaw-droppingly good work, especially because that role specifically required two extremely different kinds of like lack of vanity, because at the beginning she has to present herself as this as this completely idealized like bimbo figure. Like she has to sell this idea that her mere presence just turns every man she sees into jelly at the sight of her, and she completely pulls it off. It's almost shocking how, like, it's sort of like, I always liked Margaret Qualley in all of her other movies. I actually really like, she's like one of the examples of the kind of nepo babies we want in Hollywood. If a beautiful actress is going to produce another beautiful actress like that, who is also amazingly talented, then I fully support that. But the thing is, like, then she has to basically go the exact opposite route and play this sort of like hideous monster in a way that is like both terrifying but also almost hilariously affecting. Like, you actually feel like true sorrow and sorriness as basically, you can't even say her at this point. At this point, it's like it. Like, it's like, imagine if like Jeff Goldblum, like at the end, like when he's like coming out of the transport that second time, when begging Gina Davis to shoot him. Imagine like that was like actually Jeff Goldblum in that suit, and he had to do that for like 30 minutes. Like, to me, that's like the degree of difficulty that Qualley's pulling off in, so that's. And I'm talking about hagsploitation. Like, to me, like I think The Substance is sort of like could have the potential to create a new era of hagsploitation. The difference is that our hags, our quote-unquote hags, are going to be super fucking hot. And that's going to be I don't
know if you can call it hagsploitation when you can still lust over the hags. It doesn't seem to gel with the premise.
I feel like it takes it to the point where they're no longer lustable.
It's
spoilers.
It's much more confusing from the viewership perspective. Like, the reaction to is just all sorts of complicated.
Well, because I noted that, like, Demi Moore now is 8 years older than Bette Davis was in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Yeah, is that like the Wilford Brimley line for women?
It's for hagsploitation.
Yeah, okay. Strictly, it's a very limited barometer of hagsploitation.
Well, I feel like that's like what Baby Jane basically is. The film that started that movement is the barometer that you judge like whether or not it is or is not hagsploitation. All right.
And Wilford Brimley is just a catch-all for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, are you old? Are you older than Wilford Brimley in Cocoon?
I'm pretty sure I'm about to hit that mark. I think it was like 49.
Yeah, it's ridiculously a low number.
Hey, Kris Myers back with my pick for Best Supporting Actor. I have a cinema sin to confess. I hadn't seen any of the John Wick movies until this year. They're great action movies, and I get why they're so popular now. My new beau, also a big film buff, sat me down and made me watch them. Naturally, a lot of our date nights are at the movies. Among others, we saw Kinds of Kindness, Beetlejuice, Saturday Night, and by the time you've heard this, Nosferatu. All of them a solid 6 or 7 out of 10. I loved the anthology format of Kinds of Kindness, but I really only enjoyed 2 of the 3 segments. Tim Burton did his best Tim Burton impression in Beetlejuice, need I say more? And I really appreciated the Super 16 film cinematography, punchy editing, and production design of Saturday Night. Jason Reitman and co. really nailed that sleazy 70s New York vibe immaculately. All of these films have one thing in common, though. They each have a member of the supporting cast that, no matter how much screen time they had, they were always the best actor in the scene. Kind of like yours truly on this podcast. Powerful, sleazy, terrifying, whatever the scene called for, they were it. The film always bent towards them and their performance. And wouldn't you know, it's the same actor in every film that I mentioned. Have you guessed who it is yet? The 2024 Kris Myers Shamley Award for Best Supporting Actor goes to Willem Dafoe. Favorite supporting actor?
AKA the Ken. We actually named it last year inadvertently when Ryan Gosling was given my favorite supporting actor award, and I said offhand, we'll just rename this the Ken, because Ken is always Barbie's support.
Did I not give it? I must have given it to him, unless...
You did not.
Okay.
You told me that he was snubbed.
Yeah.
I listened to the episode today. I was as shocked and dismayed as you are right now.
See, like, I will say that even though my picks are both the favorite and the best, I can, in retrospect, be wrong if I decide I am wrong.
Well, I called you wrong this afternoon when I re-listened to the episode to see if I'd said something from the past years that needed to be brought in, and I did. It was the Ken.
Didn't I give it to Hugh Grant?
Yes, you did.
Okay. I don't feel completely bad about that, because I think I gave it to him for multiple performances instead of just the one.
Yeah, it was a combined kind of Hugh Grant love fest. All right, my first nomination for this year's Ken is Lamorne Morris in Saturday Night from this past year. A lot of critics ragged on this movie, and
it's funny. I haven't seen it yet, but it's like the true definition of a mixed reaction film, because I've seen a lot of people who really loved it and a lot of people who really hated it. So it's sort of...
And so I have a lot of trouble with the negative reviews to this movie, because they all go back to what was reality on that set, and they always want to pick it apart because X couldn't happen and Y wasn't realistic, and I can't abide those criticisms because I didn't give a damn whether it was reality or not. I wanted a movie, and reality isn't usually all that good for movies. What we got was a dramatized version of the hour leading up to the debut of Saturday Night Live, and we had a tremendous ensemble cast with a number of scene stealers vying for representation in any individual scene. I could have in looser categories, I could have named at least 2 other actors and actresses who stood out in this cast, but every scene with Lamorne Morris, who was playing Garrett Morris, was made better because of that character, the character of Garrett Morris, in the scene. And if I recognize that as I'm watching a movie, that's a true supporting performance. He doesn't have a lot of screen time, just like Garrett Morris was relegated to very small parts on that first season. I mean, that's Lamorne Morris's arc, is that he's like, I'm a tremendously talented, trained actor, and I have to play the black role in any given scene. And he's lamenting that the entire movie, and finds his voice and does this specific monologue in between vignettes, and it's a wonderful scene. I've always liked Lamorne Morris as a comedic actor. If you don't know him by name, he is on New Girl as his best known role.
Yeah. He does insurance commercials in Canada.
He does insurance commercials in Canada.
Yeah.
He just assumes nobody's watching up there in the Great White North.
Yeah.
It's like when Brad Pitt did those ads in Tokyo or whatever.
Yeah.
Next up is Lowell Sherman from What Price Hollywood, 1932. Lowell Sherman played the doomed alcoholic director that makes Constance Bennett a star in the film, and the film isn't great, but their relationship is great. It's a platonic relationship built on respect. He's a good director, she's a good actress, he helps her out, and when he becomes irrelevant after she's been made a star, he becomes he falls down this hole of alcoholism, and she houses him and helps prop him up until he ultimately commits suicide in the end because he's a drag on everyone in his life, that sort of thing. But Sherman is both heartbreaking and extremely funny, And I had seen him before. I couldn't place him. He's in D.W. Griffith's Way Down East and Capra's Ladies of Leisure. Those were the only 2 times I had seen him before. I couldn't name him, but I certainly can now after watching What Price Hollywood.
Where would you place him in a James Mason, Kris Kristofferson, Bradley Cooper sort of situation?
He is... He's like a cross between James Mason and Bradley Cooper. He's like somewhere like smack dab in between those two. Charming, erudite, and a little roguish at the same time. And in a wild turn of themes, next up is Chris Hemsworth in Furiosa Mad Max Saga. He is just so much fun as the teddy bear toting villain. I still claim this to be my favorite movie from last year, and I like it more than Fury Road. Come at me, all you lunatics. But I thought this was a tremendous film. And it just is so good because he's such a great villain. And he gets to play kind of all sides of this character, being like whimsical and funny and lighthearted one minute and then absolutely terrifying the next.
It made me love an actor I always really liked.
He did some things here that I wasn't I didn't expect for him. Didn't know he could do. So that was a nice surprise. And speaking of teddy bears, I didn't love True Stories as much as I wanted to.
Good soundtrack.
Good soundtrack, a fun movie, but it didn't really come together in any way. Kind of above face value. Watching David Byrne's head kind of unroll on screen, and for me that was the joy of it. But John Goodman is that big wide-eyed teddy bear that just is he's kind of the heart of the movie. He's the only one that's relatable in any specific way, and again, you're talking about an actor that you've thought is fantastic for 40 years now. And seeing him, what's really the beginning of his acting career, really kind of establish this persona in this quirky David Byrne film and stand out among this ridiculous cast of characters was a joy. But we're down to the winner of my Ken, and that is Erich von Stroheim in Five Graves to Cairo from 1943.
I don't like women in the morning. Go away. You understand English? Go away, I said.
No. No, Your Excellency. I stayed on while this place was bombed. I could have run away. I waited for the German troops. I waited for Your Excellency.
Why?
I wanted to talk to Your Excellency.
1 piece of sugar.
Yes, Your Excellency.
Your hands are neat. Why isn't the spoon? Sand.
Sorry, Your Excellency.
2 steps back, please. Now what do you wish to say?
Billy Wilder's film lacks some of the director's bittersweet levity, but he was given the assignment of directing a World War II propaganda film and turned it into a really fun thriller about a British soldier left behind enemy lines and hiding out in a Saharan hotel. Stroheim plays Rommel, and he is all menace all the time, and the rest of the cast is really good. I particularly like Anne Baxter. She was the one supporting performance that I really regretted leaving off my 5. Like, that would have been like 5B if I shoehorned her in. But von Stroheim makes this movie great, and I had heard it was good. It wasn't really heralded among Wilder's greatest films, but I just dug it. I thought it was super fun, tense. I read some review on Letterboxd that said it was like Indiana Jones inside a hotel, and that at first was like, well, that's ridiculous, but the more I thought about it, the more that kind of made sense because of the way it's all Nazis and the subversion of expectation, hiding out and somehow evading them this whole time sort of works. So if you haven't seen that and you're a Billy Wilder fan, I urge you to get on that and check out 5 Graves to Cairo.
My best supporting actor list, or the Ken, is going to start with our first repeat nominee, and that is Chris Hemsworth in Furiosa. To me, I would have to say I would put them on equal level. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I feel like they can't exist without each other. I think that was the thing I loved the most about Furiosa, is that it's the rare sort of prequel that actually makes the sequel, makes the first film better. Like it has now an extra added layer of resonance.
Well, that's my criticism of Fury Road, is that I wasn't really invested in the characters. We're supposed to bring this Mad Max baggage in, and because of the change in actor, I didn't feel it. Like I didn't see him as Mad Max. He was a character, and I didn't really have this connection to Charlize's character, and what it is this visceral thrill ride to and fro, and I was like, this is great, but I needed that connection to the character somehow, some way, and Furiosa delivers everything that you needed in Fury Road, and it's not as like balls out as Fury Road is, as just an action spectacle. And I think I got what I really wanted out of Fury Road in Furiosa. That's what I'm sort of like saying, is that like the first time I watched Fury Road in the theater, I spent like literally the entire viewing experience with like a layer of water over my eyes, because I was so overcome by the spectacle that I just kept tearing up the whole entire movie. And so the fact that when I'm rewatching it, I feel that same sort of like the nostalgia of that experience. But the thing I really love about Furiosa now is that it allows me now to have that like experience of remembering that, but also now experiencing with an added layer of depth for the characters. And I think like the genius of a Hemsworth performance is that it is so ridiculous, and that it is like he becomes scarier the more ridiculous he becomes. It's a case where like the fact that he is so goofy, it's almost like a Joker sort of thing. Well, it's like an unpredictable quality too, that you can't tell what he's going to do next.
Yeah.
Especially when he gets cornered. Like, you haven't seen... He's been reacting wildly and erratically. So what happens when he's cornered? And I think that's what makes the performance great.
And the amazing thing is that he does all of this and is terrifying and unpredictable. And I fucking like him. Like, I like him. I would want to hang out with this guy. Like, he's a complete psycho and you should never trust him, but he's fucking fun. And I think, and the other thing I love about it is that we've talked about in the past about how like Australian movies, specifically even Australian like exploitation movies, have a very specific like tone that you don't see in any other films, and I think a lot of it has to do with the accent. And his accent in this movie, to me, is almost like a tribute to that era of Australian filmmaking. It's very much that kind of performance and that kind of voice that he's speaking with. So, to me, it was sort of like the first time since the first Mad Max where like the series actually felt like Ozploitation because of him. My second nominee is John Barrymore in Midnight, which is a shock to me because, honestly, I generally don't like John Barrymore in movies. Like, I understand why at the time he was considered a great actor, but I always have felt like a lot of his performances I've seen have been like overly mannered, and he feels above the material, and it just he didn't want to learn his lines. He never had any interest in actually
doing the movie he was working on.
Yeah.
And so I think it was more common earlier in his career where where he would really tune into something, and like maybe you thought he actually learned the lines that day.
Yeah.
And I get the impression on Midnight that he learned those lines.
Well, because he knew how good they were. Like, the movie's co-written by Billy Wilder. You say the fucking dialogue and you know the dialogue because it's Billy Wilder dialogue. But it's easily my favorite Barrymore performance. He plays this husband who figures out that Claudette Colbert is broke, but he decides, like, hey, if you like pose as this like society woman, then and sort of lure away my wife's sort of the guy who's cuckolding me, then like, you know, like, and it becomes this like it's also like it's a sort of a Cinderella story. That's why it's called Midnight. And like I think it's a movie I utterly loved, and he's a major reason why I loved it. I think another potentially controversial one because just he's an asshole, and we do not support or endorse anything he said in 2024. But if I'm talking brave performances made this year, I have to say Dennis Quaid in The Substance. I mean, for that shot of him eating shrimp alone, like, can you imagine like Tom Cruise doing that? Like, I just like. I think just the bravery on that front alone, and the fact that, you know, like, this, as a person, he has more in common with his character than he should, but at the same time, he wasn't afraid to play him as a monster, and got that he was a monster, which is kind of weird because he's also a monster. I had my fourth nominee as winning it, just almost as a joke. But I decided that was going a bit too far. So my fourth nominee is Douglas Seal from Ernest Saves Christmas. Yes. Because he really is the perfect Santa. He is my favorite film Santa, even though I really did not like Ernest Saves Christmas. And my winner, I realized, because this was a movie that I watched for our one of our Shame Downs. But it was from last year. I think it was our 1983 Shame Down, but I realized that we recorded it like a month into 2024, and this is one of the movies I had watched in that month, so it counts, even though it's on our 83 Shame Down episode, and that's M. Emmett Walsh in Blood Simple.
Well, first off, Julian, I don't know what the story is in Greece, but in this state we got very definite laws about that. Second, I'm not a messenger. I'm a private investigator. And third, most important, it ain't such bad news.
I felt like there was that embryonic quality to Blood Simple. I felt it could have as much been a Sam Raimi movie as it could have been a Coen Brothers movie. But there's one amazing thing in that movie, and that is Walsh's performance. And didn't he pass away last year too? Like, so I also have a memorial.
Was it last year or
maybe
recently? Recently,
yeah. So that's my version of the Terry Garr is M. Emmett Walsh.
Hello there. This is Brian Sauer from the Pure Cinema Podcast and Just the Discs. And one of my, if not my absolute favorite discovery of 2024 was finally seeing John Sayles' film Gopher Sisters, which came out in 2013 and to date is Sayles' last film. So he hasn't made a movie since this, and I certainly wish that he gets the opportunity to make another one if he so desires. But it's a pretty great last film if it had to be his last. It is a story of Bernice, played by Lisa Gay Hamilton, who is a parole officer and who is assigned to a woman named Fontaine, played by Yolanda Ross. And it turns out that they have a history together. and they used to know each other in high school, and they were friends, and then they sort of parted ways at a certain point. The title Gopher Sisters comes from what they used to say about them in high school, that they, were close and they maybe looked enough alike. They could have been sisters. But so the Bernice character finds herself in a very tricky situation in that her almost adult age son is suddenly a murder suspect and is caught up with some bad folks dealing some drugs, and she needs to call upon Yolanda to help her figure this out. And on top of that, they also have to bring in an ex-police detective that's almost blind, played by Edward James Olmos, who's fantastic in this, named Freddy Suarez, to help them as they go down to Tijuana and Mexicali to try and find her son. And it's just one of those great John Sayles character pieces that is just, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch. And I was very impressed with it. It is sad to me that this film is only available on DVD at the moment. It's not streaming anywhere. I don't even think there's a rip on YouTube as far as I know. So it makes it very difficult to see. Also because the DVD is like out of print. So I had to order a copy off of eBay. I think it's like an ex-library copy. I really want a nice release for this one. I'm hoping, Criterion's working with him a little bit, but who knows what the arrangement is in terms of, who controls the rights to this film now. I hope it reverts to Sayles at some point and he can, make some deals and get a Blu-ray of this, because it's just a great, great movie, and I was really impressed with it from a director that I love. So anyway, Gopher Sisters, a big, big win for me for 2024.
Favorite actor?
I think the best actor category can only go one direction. You go first.
Because he assumes I know what he's thinking.
Yeah, I know. You should. I mean, come on. We've talked about him a number of times, even if he hasn't come up
James
in
Garner?
an episode. Yes.
Okay.
Because we've watched most of the James Garner movies, I think, at this point.
That's the problem, is he might not ever win a Shamley, because we've seen so many of his movies, and the ones we haven't seen are on the sort of like the ones he really hated in his memoir. I haven't seen what the One Little Indian or
yeah, no, I haven't either.
or the Castaway Cowboy.
I've seen that. It's like the C tier in his memoir is like, I've watched all the ones that he liked, a lot of them that he didn't like that I'd already seen, and then there's a few stragglers, and it's like I haven't watched them. I mean, I will eventually, obviously, but the point is that he's probably not going to come up here, and the only time he's come up is in our favorites for Shamedowns. I brought him up in something recently.
I feel like I must have nominated
Americanization of Emily, 64.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
That's where he came up, but I think he's definitely our most loved and shared actor.
Yeah. Well, I always, because my two distinctions are like, my favorite actor of all time is Vincent Price, but my favorite Hollywood leading man of all time is James Garner.
So I think that fits. I think that's where this needs to be. So for my first nomination for favorite actor / the Garner, I have someone who probably would not have enjoyed spending time with James Garner, and that's Oliver Reed from The Devils in 1971. I just don't feel like those are compatible personalities.
I mean, they would have enjoyed punching each other.
Yeah, I could see that. There, some fisticuffs, maybe some begrudging stares across the room, but it's hard to beat Oliver Reed when he's firing on all cylinders and sober and tuned into the material. I've seen a lot of Oliver Reed tuned out of the material, and it's sometimes hard to watch, even though he's fun. Like, you just know what Oliver Reed can do, and you're like, why are you in, like, Venom? You know, like, these kind of questions cross your mind.
I watched Fall of the House of Usher. I think it's like it's Harry Allen Tower 1984 sort of remake of one of the Poe things, but it's done in modern day. It's not set in the past. And it's very much one of those, like, Oliver Reed, like, I'm reading off of cue cards, and I haven't been sober for, like, 6 months sort of performances.
Yeah. And the footnote to this nomination is that in any other year, I can imagine him winning this, like, without question. However, we'll get to that in a second. Next, I have Jeffrey Wright from American Fiction. And this is actually the second nomination in a row for Jeffrey Wright from me. He was nominated last year in the supporting category for Asteroid City. Wright's performance stands out in this imperfect adaptation of Percival Everett's novel. And the best stuff is the interpersonal relationships rather than the industry satire that it was more known for. He's just effortless in making all of these elements work under the same umbrella. And I've said it before. I always love Jeffrey Wright. Everything he's in, and it's easy to wish that he would get more of these big flashy roles in movies that get some notoriety. So even though, like I said, I think American Fiction stumbled a little bit in managing both of these elements, Wright's performance is impeccable.
This is me. I just want Marvel, give us a live action Uatu with Jeffrey Wright. You gave us the animated version. Now we want the live action version.
Yeah. And next up is 1974 Elliot Gould in Busting.
Okay.
It's Elliot Gould and a big mustache, and I'm not sure you really need anything else out of an Elliot Gould performance. It's just, he's playing such a fun, like, grizzled cop. And honestly, watching it, I'm like, this is the best representation of why he was such, like, a sex god in the mid-'70s.
I will correct you.
Yeah.
He is still a sex god.
Still a sex god?
I don't know. Every woman I know who is into film and who, like, likes men has an Elliot Gould crush.
Even the ones that don't like men.
There may be one or two who don't, but they are the outlier, exception, not the rule.
Well, it's just funny because I would say that my kids only know him from, like, playing the dad, like Ross's dad on Friends. And I'm like, listen, this guy was everything in his
He was
day.
married to Barbara Streisand.
Right. Like, I hadn't seen, like, watching I really enjoyed Busting. It's not it doesn't aspire to be anything more than really pretty cool. Like, in that sense, like, tenor.
Is that Robert Blake is his co-star?
Yeah, is
Peter Hyams.
Partner. And I really dig Hyams. So, like, and this is kind of why I like Hyams, why I love Gould, wrapped into this.
It's almost like
movie.
It's like him, like, before he had Running Scared. It's sort of that same sort of formula.
Yeah, it's like, that's the 80s version, and this is the 70s version.
Yeah.
Utterly 70s version, where everything's kind of messy and rambling and perfect. But lots of fun, and totally recommend that. I'm just waffling back and forth. There's so many wild swings back and forth. Next is Alain Delon in Mr. Klein, 1976. I talked about this on the Alain Delon episode, how much I loved this movie, and it is just an absolute gut punch. This is Joseph Losey's film, and you never really have a grasp on where Losey's taking you in the film. He stars as he deals art, but what he's doing is buying art from Jewish people who want quick money fast to get out. So he lowballs them, gives them very little money, and takes the art. So he's kind of a scoundrel. And then he's mistaken for a Jew because he received a Jewish newsletter on his door. So he spends the entire movie claiming he's not who they say he is. Like another level of despicable. But then again, we don't know if he is who he says he is in the first place. We don't know if it's an act. We don't know if he is this person that with the same name that also happens to be Jewish. And I've never seen DeLong give a performance just quite like this. I mean, he's good at being silent, stoic, and just letting chiseled visage tell the story, and that's a skill. Not gonna negate what he does in his early career, but this is a little bit later on. He's got some years under his belt now as an actor, and it's a performance that doesn't give away where it's going. Just as Losey's not showing his hand. At the end, it's DeLong that makes you feel all of these complicated things about his fate and this particular moment in France during World War II. It's a remarkable performance, remarkable movie. If you haven't seen it and maybe think less of Alain Delon as he's just a pretty face, this is the movie that'll get you over that hump. And finally, the performance that stole an award from Oliver Reed. This is none other than Al Pacino in City Limits Serpico, 1973.
Hey, you.
Hey, who?
You. Get over here and empty your pockets.
I don't do that.
You're my prisoner. You do what I tell you to do. Get over here.
He's gonna get nasty about it.
Fuck me, man! Frank, cool it, eh? Hey, motherfucker!
Frank! Hey, Frank, Rudy's on. He's good people.
Stay the fuck out of this!
What's this?
And my God, that's a star-making performance if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. I mean, he was already a star at that point, but
he was good, like he was known. But this is the movie
he was in The
that
Godfather.
makes him Al fucking Pacino. Like and in The Godfather, he's playing someone else. I mean, he is this movie.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
100%.
Lumet allows him to be Al Pacino in the film, and there's some very Lumet things happening around him. But this is an actor's movie by definition. Talking about unusual sex symbols, like the dirty, sexy hippie Al Pacino, and like the more I looked into the reactions to Serpico and how women felt about Al Pacino and Serpico, I mean that's a rabbit hole right there. I mean, he gets to play an idealist and a disillusioned activist, and then a paranoid victim all in the same movie. It's like the trifecta of acting performances, and he's doing it in something that feels much different from the Pacino that we know today, and it's all very underplayed, understated, and that makes the specific moments that he chooses to be big and emotional that much more effective. Again, it's one of those things, the performances that you know are great and you've heard about them for years, and then you watch it and it's like, that's
fair.
The thing. You're right. Everyone's right about this one.
No, it is a great performance. I think there's a reason why, like, it's one where you can see it in so many performances all the way into the 80s. Like, it was not performance people weren't giving up on. My first nominee for Best Actor for the Garner is Don Amici in Midnight.
Yes. I love this. Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah. Well, he was already like to me, he had already reached my sort of like all-time greats list with Heaven Can Wait, Ernest Lubitsch's film, which is probably like my second favorite Lubitsch, which is saying a lot. Like my favorite Lubitsch, To Be or Not to Be, is literally in my all-time top 10. Like, so when I compare them, that's a heavy compliment. But he is just so good in this. Like I should look into it more. He's an actor who I love, who I haven't really read a lot about, because I am curious why, like, basically Trading Places and Cocoon sort of revigorated his career after he had been out of a spotlight for a while, and I truly do not understand, like, why he was out of the spotlight for a while, because I've never seen him give a bad performance. I love, like, I remember as a kid hearing the Bickersons, the radio shows he used to do, and they're still, 70 years later, still hilarious. I mean, it's sort of, he was just a really amazing actor.
What Midnight really brings out is his comic timing. Like, he has a particular timing in this movie, and I was forced to watch this in one of my film classes, and I don't even remember why. It was film censorship, right? It was film censorship because they had to work around a lot of a lot of code. And I had known Don Amici only from Trading Places and Things Change, which I love. I love Things Change, but I had only known old Don Amici. So I saw this performance and I'm like, holy shit, this guy is really funny. And in a way that I didn't see from other stars of that time.
Yeah.
So I immediately started watching all the Don Amici stuff I could get to. And he is truly one of the underrepresented actors when you're talking about the older comedians of that time, and a lot of gets talked about the comedians specifically. So why Don Amici gets left out is just beyond me.
Like, to me, like if you would say, oh, he gave a Don Amici performance, I would not, like, to me that is the same as saying, like, oh, he was like pretending to be Cary Grant. Like, it's that level of, like, he is that much of a sort of, like, his own style is his own, and, like, he completely owns it. My second nominee, perhaps to make up for what it was apparently a gross omission last year, is Ryan Gosling in The Fall Guy.
Yeah,
it is. I feel like we really fucked up by not making The Fall Guy a hit. I think it is truly a delightful film. I actually came to it as someone who genuinely loves the original series. Like, it's not well made. Like, actually, one of my favorite parts of it is how terrible the stunts are in this TV show about a professional stuntman. I swear to God, in the pilot episode, you can see that the guy who is stunting for Heather Thomas has a mustache. Like, you can literally see it. So I was actually really looking forward to this film, but it's one of those ones where it felt like it was almost just made for me. Like, one of my all-time favorite songs is Kiss's "I Was Made for Loving You." So the fact that was the recurring theme of this movie, and I'm just always a sucker for movies about the making of movies. And Gosling, I think it is the perfect role he's perfect at. I think it's very similar to what he was doing in The Nice Guys. I think when he just sort of gets this sort of like this guy who's very charismatic but also down and out and just sort of has misfortune, I don't think anyone does it better. And I would put Ryan Gosling on the level of a Don Amici as like having someone who has a very specific style, who no one can imitate, and who is just perfect at what he does. My third nomination is John Forsythe for Kitten with a Whip. It's a movie a lot of people don't like and they make fun of because it's very highly stylized and, very almost sort of campy. But I actually think it works on its own level, and I think Forsythe just manages to take on this material that could have been the thing that people accuse it of, but I don't think is. And he makes it play, and almost like I said it when I talked about it in our Shame Down episode, like it feels almost Shakespearean to me, and I think there is sort of like a level of tragic. Like the tragic hero in this movie, and I think he actually rises to that. My fourth nomination is Donald Sutherland in Don't Look Now. I think that's
I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, and that was one that I remember because I always watch our Shared Shames the day before we record the episode, so it's the freshest one in my head. And so that's why I know, because we recorded that episode in January, that it classifies.
I think I must have watched that. I
Yeah.
think I must have watched that late in
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah. So that's why it qualifies for this year for me. And yeah, I think if it was just for the scene at the beginning when he finds his daughter drowned in the lake, I mean, for that alone. But then you also have the whole rest of the movie where he gives this incredibly haunted and sort of like, and the same thing like of a tragic hero where you know he's doomed right from the start, and it just and that's if the ending is spoiled for you. Like I actually think it's one of those ones where the performance may have played better for me because I knew what the end was. So where I could see going, I could see how his performance played into that.
That's the thing that we talked about, knowing how things wind up. You're not looking for the nuts and bolts and how things fit together, and you can just enjoy the aspect of filmmaking that turns out to be great, whether it's a director or an acting performance. And I stand by the statement that I liked it more because I knew what happened at the end.
Yeah, same, 100%. But Donald came very close to winning it, but then I had to admit that if there was one singular performance by a man in a movie that I saw last year, it would have to be Henry Fonda in Failsafe.
We're not sure. It might be a mechanical failure. All I can tell you is that it's an accident. It's not an attempt to provoke war. It's not part of a general attack.
How do I know you do not have hundreds of other planes? Coming in so low, our radar cannot pick them up.
Because I hope to prove to you that it's an accident. That we take full responsibility, that we're doing everything we can to correct it.
I didn't like that movie as much as I felt like I wanted to. I did like it, but I just felt like there were some issues with it, with some of the scripting and some of the characters. But the one thing that is 100% perfect in this movie is Henry Fonda's performance, to the point that like I felt like if I were to remake this movie, I would cut everything but the performance between like Henry Fonda and Larry Hagman's character, who's the interpreter.
Yeah.
I would have like filmed just them alone in the room trying to stop nuclear war from happening. To me, that is like a movie that I would watch over and over again. As someone who has seen 12 Angry Men probably 30 times, like it's a movie I've seen a lot, and I've seen every single reaction to it on YouTube, and it's probably the most reacted to classic film on there, because it's a movie that people love, and even people who don't like classic films love. So yeah, got to give my props to Henry for Failsafe.
I like that you're so the way I did my categories was I had like a long list, and then I changed the font color for the ones that I was eliminating. You're just naming all the ones that I like fonted out from my long list. So like I had Ryan Gosling and Henry Fonda that are a shade of orange now because they were barely eliminated from the running. So I'm glad you're covering all of these.
I will say Best Actor was a lot easier for me to do than the next category, Best Actress. I probably had a list of 15 names that I felt like each one had to be on there. So, but I made the sacrifice for everyone, and I narrowed it down to 5. But this was a very good year for watching women in movies for me.
It's usually, though. I mean, we thank you for your service.
Hey, this is Jen Johans. I'm host of the podcast Watch with Jen, and I'm a writer at filmintuition.com and at filmintuition on social media. The best film that I saw for the first time in 2024 was Comrades: Almost a Love Story. It is Peter Ho-Sun Chan's 1996 film that was on the Criterion channel. I added it as a fan of Hong Kong cinema and actress Maggie Cheung, but I had no idea that it would hit me so hard. Romantic, melancholy, and universally relatable, even though it's set in a very particular time and place that moves from mainland China to Hong Kong to New York in the 80s. This tale of two lonely 20-somethings trying to make it in a new, strange city is as moving as it is engrossing. It spans their relationship from strangers to friends to lovers to two people who just can't seem to catch a break in timing while having the guts to say what they're feeling when it matters most. Augmented by the singular, soul-stirring songs of the late, great Taiwanese pop star Teresa Tang, you will dig it. So I hope you check out Comrades, Almost a Love Story.
Favorite actress?
Anybody who's listened to the podcast at all knows that this is the Rosalba.
Mhm.
So first up for Rosalba nominations is Tuesday Weld from Play It As It Lays. Speaking of specific fetishes, Tuesday Weld is among them.
Oh yeah,
she does existential dread in this adaptation of the Joan Didion novel, and I would love to pair this with Lord Love a Duck for just tonal whiplash.
Yeah. Does Pretty Poison sort of like, is that the one in the middle?
Maybe, yeah.
Or is it on the other side? It's Played As It Lays in the middle, and
you think this is a horseshoe situation?
Yeah.
And, I don't know whether it was Anthony Perkins' hair or Tuesday Weld that gave the best performance in this, because Anthony Perkins' hair is just flowing and magnificent here. But I do think that this, it's very dry material. But Tuesday Weld just has this way about it. And it doesn't make it seem so sour, really, when you're watching Tuesday Weld say it. And so I didn't love Play It As It Lies. I liked it more than the book, I would say that.
Well, I think that's one reason why I haven't seen it. Is I've never heard really too many people go like, oh, no, it's really great, you should see it. It's more like, yeah, it's a movie that exists.
It's it's not an easy watch, just because it is just rolling in disillusionment. Like, man, everything sucks. I get it. If you're looking for performance value, this movie's got it.
Yeah.
And I think the changes from the novel, I have a tough time with Didion, but apparently Didion adapting her own novel to the screen works for me a little bit better. Whatever. Next is Judy Holliday and It Should Happen to You from 1954. I absolutely adore Judy Holliday and Bells Are Ringing. I knew of her, and I don't think I really paid attention until I saw Bells Are Ringing. And it immediately became one of my favorite classic musicals. I mean, there's nothing small about her performance in anything. And never once did I think, well, that's too much. And it's still just massive and broad. And in It Should Happen to You, it's a lot more of the same. And that's all I want. I just want more of that Judy Holliday.
Well, talking of performers like Gosling and Amici, there is such a thing as a Judy Holliday performance.
Nobody can do that. That's hers and hers alone. And if you tried, you'd make a fool out of yourself.
Yeah.
And she wants to be somebody. That's the premise of the movie. So she buys a billboard and just puts her name on it. That's all it is.
This was the inspiration for Angelique.
It just creates such a stir because nobody can understand what the hell she's doing. And I love every ounce of her performance. The movie, it lets me down in the end. But it's like 90% of this movie is like my new favorite movie. I was watching this and like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. It is just pure eccentricity for Judy Holliday. And then we get down and Jack Lemmon's schleppy character just beats her back down to earth, and she's like, well, okay, I guess you're right. I guess I should be boring and nobody. And I was like, no, movie, that's not the way this is supposed to work. You're supposed to accept and embrace Judy Holliday. So I recommend watching It Should Happen to You and then just turning it off with 10 minutes to go.
That's also what I hate about The Breakfast Club. Ali Sheedy is so much cuter as a basket case and after she gets her makeover.
Yeah, it's sort of the same disappointment, really. I mean, that's cut from the same cloth. Speaking of more people who nobody can imitate, I have Carol Kane in Between the Temples that came out this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And watching it, I knew instantly that she was going to be nominated because, number one, she's Carol Kane, and she's manic and adorable and tragic and full of passion, playing an older woman falling in love with cantor Jason Schwartzman. Now, it's a movie that goes for it. Like, you think it's going to shy away from that ending, but it's like, no, we're doing this. Buckle up.
We're going to herald this mod.
And credit to the movie, credit to the script and everyone involved. I didn't write down the director. I'm blanking on his name, but it is also just a beautiful playground for Carol Kane to kind of explore what this character does. No one told her that it had to be a certain way. It's clear that Carol Kane crafted this and made it all her own. Tonal whiplash, Sandra Hüller from Anatomy of a Fall from 2023. I loved the film, and the script is very clever about how it unfolds and reveals information about how or if this woman killed her husband, and the investigation and the court scenes that follow. And this is a celebration of the script and a celebration of Sandra Hüller. Like, the performance is straight on the line between did she do it or did she not do it. And it does not matter whether she did or not. What you're invested in is just this woman's story. And the performance she gives is just remarkable for the type of movie that they made. And now, the winner of the Rosalba. This might come absolutely out of nowhere, and I'm prepared. I'm giving it a little bit of build up here, but the award goes to Jane Russell in The Revolt of Mamie Stover from 1956.
Leaning against the ship's railing, she looked out toward the horizon as if to penetrate what lay beyond. I like to stand here, she told him. It does me good. Makes me realize I have to look ahead. Only ahead. Never back. Thought you said my life's been written before.
Basically it has, but you make it different. You're an interesting character study, maybe.
Like a fish in a bowl?
Oh, of course not. Look, if you object, I'll get rid of it.
Now don't tear me up. Now don't.
If we're not talking about her politics, you'll hear me say nothing negative about Jane Russell.
We can't talk about that. What we can talk about is in Raoul Walsh's The Revolt of Mamie Stover. This is the most Jane Russell role that was ever Jane Russell. She plays sort of a nondescript bad girl who was kicked out of San Francisco. And how bad do you have to be put on a boat and kicked out of San Francisco? So she goes to Hawaii. The scene is set just before, basically, Pearl Harbor. So she goes to Hawaii and becomes a quote-unquote dance hall girl. This is all we can say, is that she's a dance hall girl. She falls in love. She gets kicked around by men. The institution is determined to beat her back down, but she is equally determined to beat everyone at their own game. And I mean, she falls in love. She's got weaknesses, but she's also playing this big, bold, confident woman and just owns every inch of the screen. The movie is gorgeous. It embraces its setting in Hawaii, and it's just massively bright colors and Jane Russell va-va-voom all over the screen. The movie itself is a little uneven, but that kind of makes it more endearing. Walsh, to his credit, seems to embrace this kind of sprawling and messy narrative. I have issues, again, with the way the film concludes. It's just minor grievances, but I can't fault anything with the performance. It is exactly what you want. She's given a starring vehicle where she is the centerpiece of the film, and she makes absolutely the most out of every second she's on screen.
I've always, in my head, the way I've always thought of Jane Russell is that Jane Russell is who Mae West saw when Mae West looked in the mirror. like Mae West had this confidence, but that I've never felt she really fully deserved. But Jane Russell, who didn't always portray that same level of confidence, really deserved to have that level of confidence.
In a weird way, I always kind of felt the same way about Mae West's character as I did about W.C. Fields' character.
Yeah, 100%.
Like they're playing these big, broad ideas and, embracing the stereotypes of the role.
Yeah. But also, like, West, famously got to the point where the idea of, like, Mae West, the character, and Mae West, the person, they became the same. Like, I have a poster of Sextet that I had signed by Alice Cooper. And as he was signing it, he went, "She hit on every single man on this poster." And so I have word from Alice Cooper that Mae West was Mae West.
Yeah.
So like I said, I had so many names on this list. Like it was hard to cut them off, but that speaks the level of how much I adored these performances. My opening one is Anne Margaret in Kitten with a Whip, which was my Play It Again, Sam, in our last Shame Down episode. Again, a movie that is, I feel, very unfairly derided as camp. I think it knows exactly what it is, and it does that in a way that's really fun and really entertaining. And the movie's success lives and dies on Anne Margaret's presence, and it is just, to me, it was very glorious to behold. My second nominee, as you may have guessed, is Claudette Colbert in Midnight. The movie wouldn't work without her. She is utterly hilarious, especially as she sort of is. She almost like she's an accidental con person. Like, she basically like stumbles into a situation and just keeps like seeing how far it will go, and then at a certain point it gets sort of situations get reversed on her and she gets put into a con she didn't know she was in, and it's so hilarious and so funny. The chemistry between her and Don Amici is off the charts, but also the chemistry between her and John Barrymore is amazing too. Like, all of his best scenes are with her, and she's an actor who I've always really, really enjoyed, and I think this is probably my favorite performance of hers. My third nomination is Anya Taylor-Joy in Furiosa. I mean, as good as Hemsworth is, Furiosa would not work if you did not buy Anya Taylor-Joy as the character. I think anyone who's listened to this podcast knows that's something I really attach strongly to when I see a performer I feel is truly loved by a camera in a way that just is iconic. And I feel that way about Anya Taylor-Joy. I think she is probably the most cinematic face that we have of any performer right now. And I think Furiosa just is a towering achievement because of her dedication to the role. It's a very high credit to say that I believed that she became Charlize Theron. The only other equivalent I could think of that is Mamma Mia 2, where you actually buy Lily James as Meryl Streep. Or maybe like Cate Blanchett doing like Katharine Hepburn. Like, the balls it takes to take on like something that is that iconic. So give it to that. And my fourth nomination is honestly, up until not too long ago, was the obvious winner, the only possible winner. But it's the fourth nomination, and that's Demi Moore in The Substance. I mean, I'm already tearing up now, but that's just as much because I'm thinking of the next performance. But I think, like, talking about like our new era of exploitation, like it's going to happen because Demi Moore just saw this chance to go there, and she had the fucking balls to do it. And to me, it is a genuinely moving performance because it truly captures sort of her experience but in a way that it feels like she knows this person, but also is completely distanced from them at the same time and is willing to show them at their worst. Like, even at the beginning when we see her naked, like, just as herself. For a 62-year-old actress in Hollywood to do that today, like, that is just, like, that is as I don't give a fuck as it gets. And I think it's amazing. And that's why I'm truly shocked that my winner is a performance in a movie that I haven't seen anyone talk about, and really hit me really hard. And that's it's a Disney Plus movie called Out of My Mind, and the winner is Phoebe Ray-Taylor.
Hi, my name is Melody Brooks, and I have cerebral palsy. Go ahead and stare. It's 2002. You've never seen a girl in a wheelchair who doesn't talk before? Here's a list of things I'll never get used to. Butts in my face because people don't see me. Staircases, people who say hi but sound so sad. Obviously, this isn't my voice. I can't talk. And I can sound like whoever I want. So I picked Jennifer Aniston.
But if you don't know, if you haven't heard of this movie, and it seems like most people haven't, because I feel if they did, they would be talking about at least the performance. I don't like how they feel about the movie is one thing, but Taylor is I'm not sure how old she is. In the movie, she's playing a 12-year-old, and she has cerebral palsy, and it is essentially a silent performance because she literally doesn't have the ability to speak. And I honestly can't. I felt more attached to her and understanding of her experience than almost any other character I've ever seen. And the fact that she did that entirely without words. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It really, really hit me hard, like, to the point, like, you can hear it. And if you haven't watched the movie, give it a chance, please.
Well, I think that pretty much sells it. I mean, I don't think
yeah. Yeah. I've gotten mad, like, reading, like, lists of, like, the best performances of 2024, and I'm not seeing her name anywhere, and I'm like, fuck you, you fucking assholes. Either the only possible way that you're doing this is because you haven't seen the movie.
Hi, I'm Raquel Stetcher, and I'm a film historian and critic, writer for TCM, and co-host of the Cine Historians podcast. Today I'm sharing my favorite movie that I watched in 2024. Now, this is actually a tie between two new releases. The Substance, the fantastic body horror directed by Coralie Farja and starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, and The Beast. Now, since everyone is already talking about The Substance, I'd like to share my thoughts on The Beast. Directed by Bertrand Bonello, The Beast stars Léa Seydoux and George McKay. It's a sci-fi romance that imagines this future world where AI has taken the jobs of most humans, and the only way for humans to really make money is to travel back into their previous lives. Léa Seydoux and George McKay are tragic lovers who fall in love with each other in each timeline. We see them in 2044, 2014, and as far back as 1910. This film absolutely took my breath away. It's about 2.5 hours long, but there isn't a single minute of it where I wasn't entranced. The Beast is both in English and French, and the two stars speak both languages beautifully. They also have great chemistry together. The cinematography and production design is astounding. There's a great use of recurring motifs and visual disruption. I love how it plays with the concepts of time. Even beyond the past lives that we visit, we get to experience different decades through a themed nightclub. The Beast explores themes of love, destiny, isolation, and human connection, and begs the question, if we were to live our lives again, would we be destined to the same fate? And wait until you get to the end credits, probably the most inventive way for the audience to participate with the movie. And if you're confused by what I'm talking about, you'll just have to watch The Beast for yourself.
Favorite adapted screenplay.
No, I didn't have a definite direction here. This is a little more complicated. Maybe we don't solve it this episode. Maybe it's for the future. I wrote down the Goldman ? Or the Dowd Morton, using her pseudonym, one of her pseudonyms, the Dowd Morton. I thought that was an interesting touch. But we don't have to solve everything.
I feel like Goldman is a solid, because he has the extra level of having adapted his own novels.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on there. I thought that was, well, we can tentatively call this the Goldman and see if it sticks.
Yeah. We don't know we don't know anything, so
no,
we're not sure if it'll work or not.
But for my, I feel like it's kind of futile to discuss the actual screenplays because, it was written well. Yeah. So my first nomination goes to Conclave from 2024, written by Peter Strawn, based on the novel by Robert Harris. If anyone can write a 2-hour movie that keeps me invested in the selection of a new pope, I've got to tip my hat to them. This was a thoroughly engrossing movie that had some twists in store that I didn't see coming, even though you're waiting for it. Like, there's got to be something, and you think you have your handle on what's going to happen, and there's just a little extra wrinkle there that makes it even more interesting. I gave another one, and I was on the fence about whether to do this, but I let Play It As It Lays have 1972 have its nomination, written by Joan Didion and John Gregory Dunn, based on a novel by Joan Didion. It was a really well done adaptation of a difficult novel. A novel that when I read it, I knew the movie existed, and this can't be this is not a movie. But they proved me wrong, and I actually found it really well done. And like I said, it got that Tuesday Weld nomination earlier, so I attached to something there. Next, Serpico, 1973, written by Waldo Salt and Norman Wexler, based on a novel by Peter Moss. I haven't read the novel, but I'm told it's not very good. And Serpico is just such a character-based film that I'd like to give all credit to Pacino, but somebody wrote Pacino, a character that defined his career, so I think it fits. Next, Five Graves to Cairo from 1943, written by Charles Brackett and Billy Wilder, based on a stage play by Lajos Biro, we'll go with. I talked about that earlier, but it's a tremendous script that's really tightly contained and all within a single location. Anytime you can write a movie that's that engrossing and keep it to one location, I feel like you've done a job. And that leads into my winner for adapted screenplay as The Devils, written by Ken Russell, adapted from Aldous Huxley's novel The Devils of Ladune.
The true sign of the devil! No! Call me vain and proud, the greatest sinner ever to walk on God's earth. But Satan's boy I could never be. I haven't the humility. I know what I have sown, and I am prepared for what I shall reap. But do you, Reverend Mother, know what you must give to have your wish about me fulfilled? I will tell you. Your immortal soul to eternal damnation. May God have mercy on you.
This, I feel like the Saturday Night Live character, this movie had it all. Bill Hader. You just need to picture Bill Hader doing it. You know Ken Russell, you know what the movie's about. It has a reputation, right? Mm-hmm. So you assume you understand what it's going to do. You assume blasphemous criticism of the church, and that's enough. But it's dialed up, full tilt, 100% cinema. Most surprising thing to me about the screenplay was that Russell doesn't actually condemn religion itself. he is so much more focused on condemning the institutions. He's in a way he's embracing spiritualism and the idea that there is a moral right that is not in line with the teaching of the religious institutions. It's the human need and want of power that corrupts. The movie is cynical to its core, but totally not in the way that I expected going in. The character played by Oliver Reed is a man that embraces what I would equate with like a true enlightenment, this belief in goodness that goes beyond an adherence to a scripture. It's goodness and faith and kindness and understanding of other humans and what it means to be human, that humans are sexual and have wants and needs, and in this film, anyone who has that kind of enlightenment deserves to be burned at the stake, and that's what's truly interesting about it.
My first nomination is for our last Shame Down. I looked into sort of the 60s British Miss Maple comedies that were made, and I bought the box set of the 4 of them. And I ended up really liking. I haven't watched all of them yet, but the 2 I watched I liked, but not quite enough to make them part of the Shame Down. But I really dug Murder Ahoy, which was written by David Purcell and Jack Seddon. I like these movies sort of like they stay true to the classic sort of character and the Agatha Christie sort of milieu, but also have sort of a very hip 60s feel, which specifically a British comedy feel that really makes them entertaining. So that was one I wanted to put on there. My second nomination is George Miller and Nick Lotharius for Furiosa, which was adapted from the Mad Max film series. I think we talked a lot about it, and I think, it's the visuals don't work unless there's also a really good script to go with it. And I think it's definitely takes a lot of twists and turns, and probably had my favorite ending of any movie that I saw this year. My third nomination is Allan Scott and Chris Bryant for Don't Look Now, which was adapted from a story by Daphne du Maurier. Again, that's a movie that the visuals are a very important part of it, but ultimately they gave it a structure that I think really works and really enhances sort of the mystery aspect of it, even if, like us, you knew what the actual solution to that mystery was. My fourth nomination is Drew Pearce for The Fall Guy, based on the TV show created by Glenn Larson. I think the thing I liked most was sort of at this certain point when you realize, not to get like spoilers, but the Fall Guy has a double meaning in this movie compared to the TV series where it only had one meaning. And I think Pierce did a really good job of sort of like making that happen. And I also really liked the narration that he wrote for Gosling's character, which I think really added to the appeal of the movie, and specifically to his version of Colt Seavers. But my winner, in someone who was nominated for a different movie, actually a pair who were nominated for a different movie in James's category, and that's Midnight, written by Charles Brackett and Billy Wilder, adapted from a short story by Edwin Justice Mayer and Franz Schuld.
Taxi, madam?
No.
Madam enjoys the rain, huh?
Here's how things stand. I could have you drive me all around town and then tell you I left my purse home on the grand piano. There's no grand piano, no home, and the purse, 25 centimes with a hole in it. That's what's left of the Peabody steak.
Oh, you have no money, huh?
That's right. I need a taxi to find myself a job. I need a job to pay for the taxi.
Oh.
No taxi, no job, no job, no soap. But if I do promote one, I'll pay you twice what the meter says, see? Double or nothing.
You'll give me the honor of driving you around while you look for a job, huh?
Yes, dear.
And for that, you pay me double?
Oh, and a great big daddy tip.
Oh, that sounds like good business.
What do you say?
I say no.
We talked a lot about Midnight already, but really, as good as the performances are, it's a movie you have to see because of the screenplay by Brackett and Wilder, which is as good as this genre gets of that era. Like this is, and it talking about the innuendo, the fact that it feels like a dirty movie even though it isn't, is really part of the fun of it.
Yeah, I'm just basking in the glow of midnight tonight. I don't whatever I nominate is fine, but it's Midnight's night.
This is Dan Delgado from the film history podcast, The Industry, the Let It Ride podcast, The Jockey Club, and for some reason, the go-to person for Christmas movies on the Cinema Shame podcast. My favorite first watch of 2024 was Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. It is the only movie that I saw twice in theaters last year, and like everyone else, I loved Fury Road, but was not sure what would we be getting with Furiosa. How would it live up to Fury Road? And for me, what we got was not only unbelievably awesome, but one of the things that's so great about it is that it felt like a very different experience in the wasteland than what we got with Fury Road and other Mad Max films. So there you go. My favorite first watch of 2024, Furiosa, Mad Max saga.
Favorite original screenplay.
Again, seeing what sticks. I had the Sturges ? Written down next to it. I felt like that was the first name that popped into the mind, and sometimes the first one is the right one. So
I feel like the Wilder could also work, though.
It could, yeah. It could be the Wilder. It's easy. I don't know.
We know everyone knows who director is going to be.
Yeah.
So I feel like we can throw Wilder a bone.
Yeah, Wilder works because he even won tonight. Yeah. So that's very fitting.
He won twice. He's a double winner.
Yeah. Look at that. All right. We did it. We did it just now organically. It just happened right in front of your face.
Although some people might think we're talking about Gene Wilder, but I'm not mad at that.
Not for his writing though. I mean, it's all over the place.
I will give it up for The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Martin.
Yes, that is my favorite. First up, I have Hitman from 2024, written by Richard Linklater and Glenn Powell. When you have a line that just immediately sticks, my family has been using it since we saw it, and that line is, "All pie is good pie." It's just so simple and works so cleverly within the scene in the film that it's, that sometimes these simple things have life that's bigger than the movie. And I think Hitman is a strong movie, a very good one, but All Pie is Good Pie is going to last longer than the film itself. Another big surprise nominee here. I'd even surprised myself and I made the list. Lisa Frankenstein from 2023, written by Diablo Cody. When any writer includes a metric ton of clever horror reference and era-specific reference, I can't help but fall in love with it a little bit. And when it does it as constant and cleverly as Lisa Frankenstein, there's no hope for me. I'm just a slave to its whims. So thank you, Diablo Cody, for writing this ridiculous, fun horror comedy. And when it came out, I didn't even recognize the Lisa Frank connection.
Yeah.
Like that was, it was like, oh, Lisa Frankenstein, just another stupid Frankenstein movie. But I was like, no, okay, I'm wrong. And shout out to this being available for airline viewing, because I generally choose movies that I'm not going to be too invested in when I'm on an airplane. But I got sucked into this, and just because it was there, and I got home and ordered the Blu-ray immediately.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I think this is, of the things that are on my list, this is the one you need to see.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's infectious, and it goes it goes some places that you're not immediately expecting, but keep in mind that it's a Diablo Cody script, and you'll get there. Next, I have The Train, 1964, written by Franklin Cohen and Frank Davis. I talked about The Train extensively on our 1964 Shamedown episode, where it won Play It Again honors. If you want more thoughts on The Train, cue that episode up. I might be talking about it again in a second. I don't know, just a hunch. My fourth nominee for favorite original screenplay is Anatomy of a Fall, written by Justine Triet and Arthur Harari. I think I'm doing that correctly. When you watch a movie, and I felt the same way about Conclave. It's a premise that doesn't speak to you immediately. And when you're watching it and you can't quite figure out why it's working on you the way it is, chances are it's the screenplay. It's just masterfully paced, and that's coming from a movie that's largely devoid of action or specific catharsis. Like, we're still left wondering what happened at the end, and it doesn't matter. We don't know, and I think it's a damn near perfect piece of writing for what it wanted to achieve. And that brings us to my favorite original screenplay. I may have talked about it earlier, and that's After Hours, 1985, written by Joseph Minion, because it's just a marvel.
Let me ask you, does that cashier seem a little weird to you? He keeps making these strange movements.
God. I think he's just waiting to be discovered. You want another coffee?
No, I'm gonna head over to my friend's house.
Which way you headed?
Downtown Soho.
Oh, nice. Nice. A loft?
Yeah, she's a sculptress. Lately, she's been making these plaster of Paris bagels and cream cheese.
Really?
Yeah, she's trying to sell them as paperweights. Wanna buy one?
Paperweight? Yeah, I would. How much are they?
I don't know. Well, if you think you might be interested, her number's 243-3460.
243-3460. Okay.
Her name is Kiki Bridges.
Kiki Bridges. Okay.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, great talking to you.
There's no way you can set out to write After Hours in any functional way. Like, you say, I'm going to write One Wild Night as a genre. You can say you're going to write that, and there's no conceivable entry into where After Hours goes. It doesn't make sense structurally. There's no act structure to follow. It's just one really bad night, and Griffin Dunne spirals into this pit of an unforgiving city. If you're trying to call it what it is, it's a series of vaguely connected vignettes, and somehow, some way, by the end of the film, you're like, that was masterful. I loved every second of it, and I can't explain why this is special. So again, I look to the screenplay, and how did you work so well on me? And I'm sitting here looking as someone who's written extensively about film, who's written a lot of screenplays. I want to know how you tick, and I don't get it. I just don't get it, but I love it.
I haven't seen it since my teens, and I remember it was a film that created so much negative tension in me that it's one of those ones where I know I like what I'm seeing, I know I'm enjoying this. I don't know if I can ever put myself through this again. So and I have it's one of I bought it when I bought a Scorsese set, it came with it. So I have it. I can watch it anytime I want. I know it's great. I know that the punk rock girl who hands him the flyer is Robin Johnson from Times Square, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And she famously got screwed out of a Hollywood career by Robert Stigwood. So it's sort of remarkable that she has another role in something. So that alone should make me want to rewatch it. but it's sort of because that movie made me feel just so like, it made me feel the worst feeling a movie could make me feel. And that's why and to me that like, I acknowledge that takes genius. That is not something that, you can just make happen.
What I found was the dual tone of the film in that it is unsettling in its way that it presents a scenario in which there's no conceivable way for this guy to get out of this situation.
Yeah.
And every time he has a moment where he thinks he's got an inch, it's taken away from him immediately. So there's this sort of treadmill effect, like there's no good way that this can go. And it's anxiety inducing. But at the same time, you have Griffin Dunne as the lead, and it's hard not to feel like levity coming out of him, even as the world is falling down around him. Like, there's just this ease of his acting style. And part of it is because of his natural humor. I mean, like, he can say the most mundane things, and I think they are just hilarious. And then heap all these supporting cast members on top of it. And while it is a harrowing film, like if you're looking at and you're ingesting what's actually happening, you have all these elements coming together that makes it so much fun, while you have this like ball of anxiety running through you. And I totally understand why people would not get this and write it off at the time and just consider it a lesser Scorsese. But maybe I don't like the major Scorseses, and maybe this is my major Scorsese. Like, I like Goodfellas. I loved After Hours.
Yeah. No, 100%. I will add, just because we've brought up both Griffin Dunne and his aunt Joan Didion, that my favorite book of 2024 was Griffin Dunne's memoir. I listened to the audiobook, so the title escapes me, but if you just look up Griffin Dunne memoir, you'll find it, and get the audiobook because he reads it, and it's great.
I'm reading it right now. Come on.
Okay, so my first nomination, as you probably heard by me weeping like a baby, I really liked Out of My Mind, and part of the reason why I believe it works and why the performance by Phoebe Ray-Taylor moved me so much is because I just liked how it was a movie where people do both good and shitty things without anyone being portrayed as a saint or a monster. Like, there are some like incredibly shitty things that people do, but they do them in a way that feels like, oh, that's exactly how that would happen in real life. It is a feel-good Disney movie, but to me it played with almost at moments it having the realism of sort of an Ozu drama. If you took Ozu and put like a candy coating on top of it, that's what this movie felt like to me. My second nomination is for Douglas Hayes and H. William Miller for Kitten with the Whip. It is a wild movie. It is a very much a dated movie. It is a movie of its time, but I just loved what they were going with and sort of the rhythm that they wrote the dialogue. It really feels like poetry, and it's like almost has like iambic pentameter the way they write it, and it is ridiculous, and I loved it. My third nomination is probably my biggest wild card nomination, but it's Ruth Brooks Flippin for Looking for Love. Like, I shouldn't have loved a Connie Francis starsploitation vehicle as much as I did, but one of the reasons why I love movies like this, and especially why I love the Elvis Presley movies, is I like screenwriters were basically told, you have 80 to 85 minutes to kill, go. Okay, here's a set piece, and here's a really stupid excuse to string them all together. And that's what Flippin does with Looking for Love. And I just found it so random and so delightful. Danny Thomas and Connie Francis sing together, like, actually moved me. That speaks a lot to what everyone was doing. My fourth nomination is Joel and Ethan Coen for Blood Simple. My issues with this movie are more terms in casting and direction than anything else, but I think that the reason why M. Emmett Walsh gave such a good performance is because the Coen brothers gave him a really amazing character to work with, and I felt like, yeah, they deserved a nomination for that. My winner is Coralie Forgiat for The Substance.
You're a lucky day, Miss Sparkle, because we have x-rayed you from head to toe, and you don't have so much as a cracked molar, so you are good to go. Vaccination, okay. Not currently on any medication. By the way, I just want to say my wife is a huge fan. Blood type. Oh, hey, it's your birthday. Happy birthday. Oh, that's an emergency. I'm sorry. I have to have a good, bye.
She is probably like my favorite filmmaker working today. I think she's just like a filmmaker who is just completely on my wavelength. She just like I feel like people are calling like The Substance a satire, and from like a purely sociological level, I understand it, but I just like her, like Forget's gift is just able to take like exploitation like concepts and truly turn them into art in a way that honors the exploitation rather than distances it from it. Like I feel like you have someone like David Lynch, who is a filmmaker who I don't really respond to. And I feel like that's because he's taking these exploitation tropes and going like, I'm better than this. I'm more unique than this. And like, I am transforming this and making it into art. Whereas I feel Forgiat just does it naturally. She understands sort of like what makes these movies so fun and so good, but then is just able to give them that extra twist of the dial where they take on a profundity that just hits you on a purely visceral level. Like between The Substance and Revenge, like she will really have to fuck up in the future for me not to like basically, you know, be there opening night for everything she creates from this moment on. I'm just fully bought in.
I still haven't seen it. Hallelujah, holy shit, that's the Old Movie Weirdo Hotline. That must be Will McKinley chiming in with a favorite old movie he watched in 2024.
Hey everybody. So usually on Cinema Shame I talk about old movies, but my favorite first-time watch of 2024 was a new one with a timeless theme. A little background. Back in 2013, I saw Charlie Chaplin's The Kid at Film Forum in New York City. It was a family screening, and there was a costume contest with kids dressed up as Chaplin. Absolutely adorable. And afterwards, I spoke with two of the kids, 5-year-old Matilda Fleming and her brother Shane, who was 9, for an article I was writing. Fast forward about a dozen years, and both of them are in Christmas Eve in Miller's Point, my favorite discovery of 2024. Writer-director Tyler Taramina's ensemble comedy charmed me from start to finish, and not just because I grew up where it's set on Long Island and have experienced many of the complex family dynamics it depicts. Wherever you're from, you'll find moments of relatability in this idiosyncratic, proudly plotless throwback set, not surprisingly, on Christmas Eve. It's meandering, episodic, and improvisational, just like real life. And the cast of mostly unknown actors, featuring Matilda Fleming as the lead and Shane Fleming in a small role, is just fabulous. There are a few familiar faces like Michael Cera, but Matilda is really the heart of the film, and I look forward to seeing more of her unvarnished naturalism in the future. Christmas Eve in Miller's Point is a perfect watch for those of us who have complicated feelings about family, the holiday season, and life in general. It really is lo-fi filmmaking at its finest.
Favorite director.
All right, that brings us to the Lumet, does it not? The favorite director category, which just has to be called the Lumet. There's no other option here.
Yeah.
as a result of this no other option, I also basically cheated and made 6 nominations for this category because I had to include Sidney Lumet for Serpico 1973. Yep. That said, we'll move on now to Ken Russell in The Devils 1971. I've talked about Ken Russell already. Masterful direction in that movie, and I'm hot and cold with Ken Russell. I love some Ken Russell, and I can just not react whatsoever to some Ken Russell, but this one is working for me. Next up, Joseph Losey, Mr. Klein, 1976. And here's where 1964's domination takes over. Hiroshi Teshigahara for A Woman in the Dunes, because there's nothing quite as cinematic as shoveling sand. I tell you what, I might be making fun of it, but there's nothing joking about Woman in the Dunes. It is a beautiful movie.
He almost made me want to see it.
Almost. I'm still working on it. Next up is some more 1964 disillusionment from Hobaru Nakamura, The Shape of Night, where a woman is forced into a world of prostitution and sees no way out. So they're thematically related by year. Beautiful films. I said in the 1964 Shamedown episode that this is the origin story of Wong Kar-wai, and Wong Kar-wai happens to be one of my favorite directors. And my winner for the Sidney Lumet is John Frankenheimer for The Train 1964.
Please, why did you come back here? You want everyone killed? Maybe you think you're a hero. Maybe you don't care if you live. What right have you to do this? Leave us alone. I knew Jacques all my life. And then his wife sat with me when my husband was killed the first year of the war. And now I'll sit with her. Men are such fools. Men want to be heroes, and the widows mourn.
Perhaps men are fools. There were over 100 involved in stopping that train. Switchmen, brakemen, yard gangs, station masters. God knows how many will be shot, like Jacques. You know what's on that train? Paintings. That's right, paintings, art. The national heritage, the pride of France. Crazy, isn't it?
There's something about Frankenheimer's ability to make big train explosions and then make a film that's simultaneously as personal and interesting and emotionally charged as The Train. He's one of the rare directors that can do everything in the same scene. But the one thing I will always love about Frankenheimer is that he always wants it big, he always wants it real, and The Train is all of the above. Plus Burt Lancaster not caring 1 ounce about doing an accent. I mean, he's acting alongside Jean Moreau.
He's Connery French.
Yep, he's acting right alongside Jean Moreau, who's nailing it. She barely missed my list for supporting actress, and he's like, I don't care what kind of French you're speaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Frankenheimer, The Train, 1964. Talked about it already, but worth repeating.
I am going to. You're going to be able to do your best picture last, because I just looking at my list now, I realize that my best director and my best picture are identical and even in the same order. So I just might as well take care of them both now.
Knock it out.
Instead of repeating it, 10 minutes later.
We are nothing if not expedient.
Hey everyone, Eric Jones here. Looking to tell you about a film that I watched in 2024 that was probably one of the more surprising entries that I've seen. It's a film called The Sniper from 1952, directed by Edward Dmytryk. written by Harry Brown and based on a story by Edna and Edward Anhalt. And it stars Adolphe Menjou, Arthur Franch, Gerald Moore, and Marie Windsor. This film surprised me. I was watching it back during Noirvember, and it was on the Criterion Channel. And I was kind of fascinated just with the idea that it's a film about a man who has issues with women, and it was interesting to see, because I wouldn't have thought. I just was surprised to see a film that says this is about a man who has issues with women, and he picks up a sniper rifle and he is shooting women. What was surprising, though, was it wasn't sensational in any manner. It was also an examination of the failure of society to recognize and, I guess, be aware of the issues that one may have. There's a scene early on where the titular sniper, Eddie Miller, played by Arthur Franz, goes to the hospital, and the whole scene is basically of him trying to get some attention, and he's turned away. And because he's turned away, that's when he begins to go down his dark path. And I was kind of just taken aback by the fact of this film that kind of looked at society and said, hey, here's a young man who is saying that he has issues and society has ignored him. And it's, unfortunately, we see the consequences of what happens when society ignores those who are seeking help and those who know that they have their issues. So that was just kind of the surprise film that I had for 2024. It was produced by Stanley Kramer, and it was Dimitrich's first film back after he had been blacklisted. And again, it was just very it was engaging and very well acted, and just kind of a bit of a gem of Columbia Pictures film noir. So if you get the chance, check out The Sniper from 1952. Thanks.
Favorite movie?
So my first nomination is Furiosa, directed by George Miller. We've already discussed it at length. It is really probably the best prequel ever made, I would say. I can't think of anyone that I think satisfies the requirements of a prequel to that degree. If it's not the best, it is the archetypal prequel. This is what you should aspire to when making a prequel to a great movie. My second nomination is Don't Look Now, directed by Nicholas Roeg. Really, it's a movie I avoided for a long time just because I thought it might be a bit too pretentious for me, and I completely regret that. But then we were able to talk about it in our Shared Shame as our Shame Down, and you can hear me say basically all the reasons why I thought it was a great movie. My third nomination is Kitten with a Whip, directed by Douglas Hayes, which is a movie, as we already discussed, is considered campy enough to be on Mystery Science Theater 3000, but I actually think is a genuinely great film of its kind. I think it does exactly what it wants to do in a way I found really entertaining. My fourth nomination is Out of My Mind, directed by Amber Seeley. You heard me blubber about it, so now you know just how much that movie really affected me. And as you must have already guessed by now, my winner is The Substance, written and directed by Coralie Forgia. To me, this is the platonic ideal of what I want in a movie. it made me happy. And if you've seen the movie, you can understand how bizarre that is, because it is a movie that is both truly delightful and truly disturbing at the same time, which I think is kind of a miracle. Like, I think you have to be as talented and as much of a genius as Forgia is to get away with sort of the trick she pulled with that movie.
All right, and now we're down to the last category here. Really, is my picks for, I guess we'll just call it favorite movie or the Shamely, because it's the big daddy, the whole enchilada here. And since Allan just blended the B movie right into everything that he did tonight, I still have the separate and very distinct B Shamely category that will follow immediately after the main attraction. Now, first up, I have The Train, 1964, directed by John Frankenheimer. Next, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, 2024, directed by George Miller. After Hours, 1985, directed by Martin Scorsese. And here's the only movie I watched twice in 2024, The Fall Guy, directed by David Leitch.
I felt really bad leaving that one off my list, but I just looked at the 5 and go, like, I can justify leaving The Fall Guy off this list, even though I truly loved it.
When I'm talking about my favorite experiences, my favorite movies that I watched this year, I could not leave it off, even if I could not force anyone else into my categories, because I really felt like this was sort of a banner year for me, checking off movies that I should have seen, wanted to see, and fell in love with the movies that I was told I was supposed to love, which doesn't always happen. I'm like, it's fine. But this year, I really hit it hard, which brings me to my favorite movie from 2024 that I watched all the way back on January 10th. Ken Russell's The Devils, 1971.
Do you remember the first time your thoughts were turned to evil things?
He plies me with caresses, lustful, obscene. He enters my bed at night and takes from me that which is consecrated to my divine bridegroom, Jesus Christ.
And what form does this incubus take?
Who is responsible for this evil possession?
But of course I can prove nothing. This Mother Superior may be little more than a hysterical nun.
But if it is a genuine case of possession by devils, and if Grandier himself was proved to be involved, then yes, I think it bears investigation, gentlemen.
You've been a magician.
You've had commerce with devils.
You face eternal damnation.
Conjecture is useless. We need a professional witch hunter. We must send for Father Barre.
The thing is, you watch The Devils to start. It was the first new watch I had of 2024, and I'm like, what's gonna beat it? Come on, everybody, let's try and top The Devils on my list this year. There were many that came very close, but in terms of just the gee, wow, what did I just watch effect, nothing could top it. Which blends right into the B Shameleys, starting with I Married a Monster from Outer Space, 1958, directed by Gene Fowler Jr. Have you seen this movie?
I haven't, but I know all about it.
I picked up, I guess it must, I don't even know where the Blu-ray came from. I think it was maybe a UK Blu-ray. I'm not entirely certain. I don't know why I have it.
Yeah.
It must have been a sale, and I popped it in, and expecting just a very silly 50s science fiction movie, and I gotta tell you, it had a lot more going for it, in as much as you could see all the seams and cheapness come together in the film. But it's fun, and it's one of those that surprises you when you think it's 1958. It's not going to do that, but it did do that. Kitten with a Whip, 1964, directed by Douglas Hayes. You've talked about this extensively already. I don't need to repeat anything there. I thought it was far better than its reputation. Still, clearly, B movie in form and function, but just a lot of fun. I included Lisa Frankenstein in it because at its heart, it's a B picture in that it's crafting a world and not giving a damn. Firmly in B movie territory, back again, is Surf 2, The End of the Trilogy, 1984, directed by Randall M. Badat. Oh, I should mention that Lisa Frankenstein was directed by Zelda Williams. I left her off. But yes, Surf 2, End of the Trilogy. I talked about it in the 1984 Shamedown. It is so clever and stupid, and when you can combine clever and admit that it's all still stupid at the same time, that's a feat. And my winner for favorite B movie of 2024 is Alphabet City, also from 1984, directed by Amos Poe.
At 19, they gave Johnny the streets and everything on them. Tonight, they want it all back.
Remember one thing, Johnny? Nobody's indispensable, you know what I mean?
I don't know. Did I talk? I don't.
As discussed in our Dance Goddess episode.
Right, I brought it up briefly.
Talking about it,
Yeah, so somehow I didn't shoehorn this into the 84 episode. I must have watched it afterwards. It came out on a Fun City Blu-ray, and this movie bleeds neon pink.
Yeah.
It is just uncluttered period adoration. It's about a drug middleman who wants to not burn down the building his sister and mother live in. He wants his sister, played by Jamie Gertz, not to prostitute herself. He runs
billionaire Jamie Gertz, as we also learned in
as mentioned,
Dance Goddess episode.
And he runs afoul of a drug kingpin, gets himself in a pickle, and where else but the 80s will Michael Winslow save the day? It's just a very specific time and place.
As we're writing this, Steve Guttenberg is one of the heroes of.
Oh my God! Did you see? My wife sent me that New York Times Daily today, and she's like, at the 8-minute mark. I'm like, okay, whatever. I was at the gym, so I queued it up and I'm listening to it, and they're interviewing people about the fires in Los Angeles. And this reporter is talking to a human about him trying to get people to leave keys in their cars so that the cars can then be moved when they're fleeing the cars that are in the path of the thing. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Steve Guttenberg. And they're not saying any fucking thing about it. I'm like, why don't you know who that is? Say something. And he's like, oh, what do you do? I'm an actor.
It's clearly a guy in his earpiece goes, that guy is a famous actor. So the guy's like, oh, I understand you're an actor. Like, some 20-something reporter who's never seen the Police Academy movie, has never seen Short Circuit. Like, in fairness, Cocoon is very difficult to actually see now. So that's one the kids have an excuse for not seeing.
Well, come on, don't tell her it's me. Just got a Blu-ray release.
Didn't expect to see you here today.
I don't know your name.
Lobo Marunga.
Lobo? Where did you say you're from? Bavaria?
New Zealand.
I wanted to I didn't do a best B movie category, but I did have talking about James watching The Fall Guy twice. I watched Jenny Nicholson's The Spectacular Failure of the Star Wars Hotel, which is nearly 4 hours long, 3 times over the course of 2024. So I feel like it deserves a special shout out. If you're not aware, Jenny Nicholson is a sort of elfin YouTube who talks a lot about Star Wars and a lot about theme parks, and she looks like she's 12, but like sort of like and sounds like she's 12, but sort of has sort of the affect of a 60-year-old woman who just has seen it all, and just, you know, it's very, she's a very delightful presence, and she went and stayed at the Star Wars Hotel and had a very negative, well, not a very negative experience, but enough of a negative experience to create a 3-hour video of her, almost 4-hour video of her talking about it, and it's just delightful from minute one. And when I say I sat through it 3 times, I mean I've sat through it beginning to end 3 times. It's not like, oh, I'll put it on and watch a bit of it. Once I start watching it, I cannot turn it off. So if you haven't, and if it seems even the slightest bit of interest to you, I suggest you check it out.
I should mention that I forgot to mention that Vincent Spano is the star of Alphabet City. If you need that extra 80s push to watch Alphabet City.
Well, and I think for some reason that's why it comes up in our Dance Goddess episode. I think that Paul refers to the hotness of Vincent Spano, and you were like, I just watched Alphabet City.
Mystified about how we got to that, but that makes more sense like this.
And now, favorite physical media release.
And we have a special bonus category that we conjured for this episode of the Shamely Awards, and that is our favorite physical media releases of the year. And I did one for my favorite individual release and favorite box set, because I could not differentiate between, there was just no way to choose if I was doing like a single title versus like massive box set. So I will say my favorite individual release was the Stop Making Sense 4K that came out from A24. It's one of my favorite films, my absolute favorite concert film, and finally having this on this is the definitive release of the film with all the extras, all the cuts, and the audio on this. The original Blu-ray had a really great audio track, but when the full band kicks in on this 4K, it's a spiritual experience, and I even have that stupid, really tall case from A24 that has to sit on a bookshelf and can't sit with the other Blu-rays. So it's got its own special section next to the television, all by itself. And then my favorite box set, which I just received, and I got right at the end of the year, so I guess it counts because I'm still going through it. But the Shaw Scope Volume 3. I've really enjoyed just kind of plowing through the Shaw Brothers films on the first 2, but I kind of began watching them out of obligation for just, getting through the titles, and they're washing over me. And but Volume 3 is when the actual quality consistently kicks in, and it's definitely the highest win ratio of the 3 sets, and there's just something about sitting down and watching endless streams of kung fu that is just good for the soul. So that's why I've picked this massive box of kung fu for my favorite box set release.
Well, for my 2 nominations, I treated it like the rest of the Shameleys, where it wasn't so much if it was new, but if it was new to me. But my first one does qualify because it did come out last year, and that was the bound Criterion edition set. I actually, one of the first things I ever bought off eBay was what was already then, like in the 90s, the out of print bound Blu-ray that had the original audio commentary on it. So it was almost like a nostalgia thing to have this Blu-ray come out that has that commentary on it. I haven't re-listened to it, so I'm not sure if it has the famous 5 minutes of silence, and you wonder what they were talking about that they felt couldn't be on the actual commentary. I think it's the only Criterion edition that I bought in 2024. That was the only one that made me go, oh, I absolutely have to have this as soon as I heard it came out. And it's, of course, you've seen it. If you haven't, you have to. It's probably my pick for the sexiest movie of that, decade. I think it just, the combination of Gershon and Tilly is just as sexy as noir gets.
I mean, so I owned it on Laserdisc, and then I bought the DVD, and then I bought the Arrow Blu-ray, and then I bought the Criterion Blu-ray.
Yeah, I never owned a Laserdisc. That's the one format that passed me by. And my best box set physical release, it technically came out in October of 23, but I didn't get it until the beginning of the year, and that is the Toxic Avenger 4K box set. And I would say, like, as someone who it was only in 2023 that I got a 4K player, and sort of, if you look at my 4K collection, it's not very big because it's basically movies that for some reason I never got around to buying on Blu-ray or DVD, but I felt like, oh, I should finally own these at some point, like the Indiana Jones movies, like the Blues Brothers, stuff like that. The other half are, these are the greatest films ever made, and they're in my top 10, and they're on 4K, so I am obligated to own them, like Singing in the Rain and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And then the majority of them is like, I can't fucking believe this is on 4K. Like, probably
that's the Toxic Avenger. That's exactly what that is.
Like, I can't remember the Bloodsucking Freaks. To me, is the version. Like, to me, that is the ne plus ultra of, like, I had to have this on 4K just for the fact that there's a 4K of this horrid little movie. But I also felt that was also true of the Toxic Avenger set. Like, I already own these movies on DVD. A couple of them I also own on Blu-ray. But it was sort of like, as soon as I found out that Troma had released a 4K Toxic Avenger 4-movie set, and I don't think there are any new, like, I think it's all the same features from all the same releases, but just the fact that it's a 4K, and now I'm doubly convinced that is absolutely not Marissa Tomei for the part where they claim that it's Marissa Tomei. Like, if she did, she got major surgery between that and Playing for Keeps, because it absolutely does not look like her in HD.
And that's all we've got. That's the entire category run. I hope you've managed to make it through this entire episode and not drunk yourself under the table. But
we hope it didn't get too awkward at one point.
Oh no! It's not a real episode until Allan's broken down in tears. That's when you know it's been real. I don't have any wise parting words other than watch movies. Watch those movies that you've been putting off for a long time. The ones that people tell you are very good. You know, there's a reason that they're saying this, and they're sharing their love of cinema with you. So watch them. Be sure to tell them that you watch them, and just, try some stuff. You never know what you're gonna attach to, and I think just exploring how your favorite actors and directors branch out into different areas and finding those hidden gems makes all of this worthwhile. We've seen a lot of movies, but there's always more to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best, like, the fact that one of my favorite movies of that I watched last year was a Connie Francis movie. So just be open to everything, and, you never know what you're going to come across.
And that's it for the 4th annual First Watch Shamey Awards. We hope you found some new movies to add to your watch pile. Keep righting wrongs by watching those unseen gems. It's also our season finale. James, Allan, and I are going to take a short break before the new season begins. In the meantime, you can find Cinema Shame on Blue Sky at cinemashame.bsky.social and on Instagram at Cinema Shame Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Cinema Shame Podcast.
You have chosen wisely.